Today's episode contains discussion of suicide and mental health challenges, which may be distressing for some listeners. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek help from a professional or contact a crisis support service in your area. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Angels Among Us, the podcast where we share real stories of angelic encounters. Each episode, you'll hear first-hand accounts of divine protection, guidance, and miraculous interventions that remind us we're never truly alone. Whether through a whisper of comfort, an unseen hand of protection, or an unmistakable presence, angels are closer than we think. Join us as we explore these powerful experiences of angels, both seen and unseen.
Hey, you guys, we are starting this episode with one of my dear friends, Alecia Sanford. Alecia and I work together with Pampered Chef, and I met Alecia, 4 years ago in Pampered Chef.
Yeah.
And she is my bestie with technology. She's super smart. And I just love her. And over the years, I've been able to listen to her story. And she has been an angel in my life, whether she knows it or not. And so I wanted you guys to hear her story because it's so powerful. And she's been through a lot in her life. And I think that she can really help other people. And so, Alecia, I'm going to have you just kind of start and share your story and introduce yourself. And yeah.
Well, thank you. First off, I'm honored that y'all even asked me to come on here, and everything you said is absolutely true. I have just loved you over the years, and I think the more time we spend together, the closer we get. So I love it. I love it.
I'm feeling a little left out here. Nobody's talking about me.
Oh, whatever. Stop it.
Well, I'll watch you in your page. I like to watch your videos. You're awesome. You're awesome support. You're awesome chef there.
Thank you.
Captain, President. That's what it is, right? Okay.
Yes.
So my story starts quite a few years back. Let's see, if I do the math, what's 32 minus 8? 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. 24, 25?
24.
24. Okay. I got married. And before that, I was married before that, and I did go through 6 years of infertility. And so I got married, and a second time went to a fertility doctor, and all this is kind of plays into my whole story and all the angels and all the things. But went to the fertility doctor before my second marriage, and he said 15% chance of ever having kids. Sorry, not a lot we can do there. We'll run you through some tests, and that's about it. And I'm like, okay. So I told my soon-to-be husband at the time, Tommy, I said, look, if you want out, you're free to go. Like, knowing this. So he said, no. He said, I'm going to stick with you. And so I knew then that, like, no matter what, we were supposed to be together. So some of my story there is that we were able to go on and naturally conceive. And so we had some children. But either way, together we went down the road. And things were great at first. I knew he had a past. When I say a past, there was some alcohol abuse and different things like that. But we just really got, gelled together, and everything worked out, fell in love, the whole 9 yards. He was trying to work through some of his problems, different things like that over the years. But about 6 years in, he started struggling with his mental health pretty severely. And there was a lot of ups and downs. The alcohol became much more of a crutch. I never knew if I was going to be staying up all night and we were crying, or if he was going to pass out in the chair. It just got kind of severe. So throughout those 2 years, and some of the details I'll leave out just because it involves other people that I don't have permission to talk about. It's their story, not mine. But there became some other issues in his family life and different things like that. And through those times, he started seeking help. He started wanting to go talk to people. He was doing good. I thought everything was kind of okay. And we planned a trip to Disney World with our children. They were 5 and 6 at the time. We had planned it with my parents. We were all in. We were going to go. We were going to have a good time. It was going to be great. Family, love, everybody together, all that good stuff. But a couple months before the trip, Tommy started acting different. There was some things that were going on that were just, I didn't understand. I couldn't figure it out. Now, mind you, at the time, to say all that, I was working full time in a lab. I was a lab technician. Years before I did this, I worked in laboratories with scientists and different things like that. So I worked 40 hours a week. I was in school full time, trying to get a degree in business management. And I also was a wedding photographer. And I was at the height of my career in wedding photography. I was doing 2 weddings a weekend. So I was just kind of slammed. So some things that I did not realize were happening, with him were happening. And during those 2 months, all of that is kind of just a blur because it was kind of a roller coaster of events, I guess you could say. But 2 weeks before we were to leave and go on this trip to Disney World with my parents, he sat up in bed at midnight one night. He said, I'm not going to Disney World with y'all. I'm not going to Florida. And I said, well, why in the world would you not do that? Our kids are 5 and 6. They're excited. They want to go. Like, what? And I got mad. I was like, what are you doing? And he just said, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to focus on trying to quit drinking. I'm going to focus on me. And so that when you come back, there's a whole new person. In retrospect, I now know that that was not what he was doing, that he was determining some next steps. So after we argued about a week about it, we got into a good place. I was like, okay, this is what you need to do. I'll set some people up to check on you. I don't think you should be doing this by yourself. So I, talked to our family and friends that were close and nearby, had them checking in on him. He was not alone, that kind of thing. And so me and the kids set off with my parents at Disney World. And about 3 days in, something flipped again. Something switched, and he became quite different. He became spastic. That's not a good word. Not spastic. Anxious. He became very anxious. And things started going awry. Kind of fast forward a little bit through some details there because they're probably not that important. He called me on a Tuesday night and he was visibly upset. So I tried to talk him through it. It didn't really work. And through the random series of events, he got frustrated with me and the phone hung up. Or so I thought. So then I called back. I probably called back until midnight that night. Just kind of constantly trying to get a hold of him. Couldn't get a hold of him. The phone was busy, the next morning, I woke up and I went to sleep. I didn't sleep very well. I slept about maybe 3.5, 4 hours, just kind of fretting because he had never not talked to me that long before. So I got up and immediately about 7:30, one of our friends drove by the house and said, Alecia, usually Tommy's gone by now, but the work truck, his regular truck, and your car were there. That's unusual. I said, yeah, you're right, it is. So I started calling again and calling again. I couldn't get a hold of him. I called his work. They said he's not coming to work. We haven't heard from him. Tommy was what they call a functional alcoholic. He was at work every single day, never missed a day. But when he was not at work, he was drinking. So I called his work. I called his boss. I said, something's wrong. And I remember where I was. I remember I was on Tom Sawyer Island, actually, and I was standing there, and I turned to my dad and I said, something's not right. And it's like the pit in my stomach just knew that something was not right. So we get off of the island, and we're walking, and the kids and everybody wanted to get on a ride. I was like, I don't want to get on the ride. I'm waiting for this phone call. I need to find out if he called into work. But I got on the ride anyway with the kids, and I get off the ride, and I had told his boss how to get into the house. So he calls me and he says, hey, I'm at the house. I get off Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm standing there, this little foyer. There's a fountain in front of me. The kids are shopping in the gift shop, and I tell him how to go in the house. So he goes in the house, and through the process, sorry, I'm getting some. Through the process, he says, I can't find him. But his vehicles are here. And I said, well, that's weird. Did you check in the office? And he said, where's the office? And I said, well, it's the little broom closet in the garage. Like you have like a closet where you keep your, inside garden tools.
Mhm.
I said, he turned it into a office. It's where my computer is for school and all that. So he goes in there, and he says, I need you to sit down. And I said, what? And he said, he has taken himself out.
Mm.
So, wow. So I fall right there in the middle of the shopping center. I got choked up onto that in a little while, y'all. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Um, uh, so in the shopping center, and my dad picks me up, and he just puts his hand over my mouth because I'm screaming. It's that primal scream that comes from your gut, and you don't really know what's powering it. It's just very, I can only say only people that have had that kind of loss, or lost a child, or had such a devastation, know that scream that I'm talking about. And so he picks me up. I remember he just picks my whole body up and gets me out, and the Disney workers are all around, and they're trying to give my kids stuffed animals, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. And my mom has the phone, and she tells them, this has got to be a joke. And he's like, no, it's not a joke. So I planned his funeral, and his arrangements on a 2-day trip home from Florida, and came back, and 8 days later buried my husband. So my children's father. So that sent me into a spiral. Probably like a lot of people can imagine, if they've ever been through it, they know exactly what kind of spiral I'm talking about. It's a tornado in your chest. Suicide is not like any other death. It's a different kind of death.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I've always said, it's like your loved one was murdered by them. They were murdered by themselves, because that person in their right mind would have never done what they just did.
Mm-hmm.
Something else took over, and that person is not really them. The person that did that is not really that person. It's the mentally unstable, the torn part of that person that takes over. They don't see any other way out. And in that moment, you would have never been able to tell me that I would one day understand that. But I do now. Some crazy things did happen shortly after that. One of them being on the way home, on the drive home. My dad was driving. I was in the back seat. I was pretty upset. I felt like I had gone into this weird state. And it was like halfway between consciousness. I know that sounds really strange. It was not sleep. It was like halfway unconscious, halfway conscious kind of thing. And I felt literally like Jesus himself appeared and he said, he didn't mean to do it. He didn't mean to do it. Just give me some time. Um, and that was odd. That was like, it was a vision almost, which was very strange. And I was, very upset. So I just kind of went, my mind's playing tricks on me, Alecia, shut up and go on and get home. And, so that happened. And that was a moment that I look back now and I go, no, I know exactly who that was. That was Jesus. And he was telling me that he was okay and that, he didn't do it on purpose or whatever. But it still didn't stop a spiral. I went through the next 5 years pretty messed up. Um, I went from being extremely angry to upset. During that time, I met my third husband, and we ended up getting married. And not too long after that, gave birth to my youngest, which is an absolute wonderful rainbow after a storm child. But during those 5 years, I suffered pretty immensely with my own mental health. Um, Postpartum depression was a bad thing. On top of already being upset, I was still grieving. I didn't know how to process that grief. I was in counseling, but like I said, suicide loss is quite a different thing. So I went to a very dark place. And I stayed there for a long time, like 5 years. So I survived. I lived my day to day. I took care of my kids. There was good times, don't get me wrong. Like we had fun. There was good things that happened during those 5 years, but my faith took a toll. Like I couldn't understand how something like this could happen. How it could even be allowed. You kind of go, God, how could this even be allowed? And you think about, during that time, you go, well, children get abused. There's starving children. There's innocent people or suffering everywhere. Alecia, it's not just you. Like you go through this cycle of constantly trying to reason with everything. But at 5 years, my faith and everything would come to its absolute biggest test ever. And basically, one day I just got furious with God, and I said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm out with you. Um, Everything I have tried to follow you my entire life. I've been in church my entire life. I have, you know, told everybody about you. I have done your praises, and this is what you've put me through. I was just furious. And so I said, I'm done. I'm not gonna praise you anymore. I'm not gonna talk about you anymore. I'm done with you, God. I'm done. And at that point in time, meant it. um, but 3 or 4 days later, I start going, oh crud. Guess where I'm going? I'm going, where I'm not going to get to see any of my family, my friends, my loved ones ever again. So, this is where, we were talking when we talked about doing this podcast about angels, and I do have angels in my life, but this is a moment that defined literally the rest of my life. And I was driving down a road, a highway, and I had all of my kids in the car. So my two oldest, my oldest was in the front, my middle child was in the back right, and the baby was, of course, behind me and in the car seat. And we're driving down the street, and I'm realizing what I'd done. I was like, oh boy, I'm going to hell. And so literally. And so as I'm going down the street, I start praying. And I'm just like, Lord, please forgive me. I can't believe what I've done. Like that was dumb. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it is you want me to do. And I knew that bargaining wasn't really going to work, but I was just like begging, please forgive me. Please forgive me. And about the A few minutes after I started that prayer, I started saying, please forgive me and give me a sign any way you possibly can to let me know you forgive me. Like, please, because I got to know that you're going to forgive me and you're going to take me back. And I look in the rearview mirror and I see this very large red bus behind me in the left-hand lane. And I'm going, what on earth is that bus? Like, I was completely distracted at that point. I'm sitting here praying for forgiveness to go to heaven. And this big red bus catches my attention. I mean, who does that? That's called ADHD prayers, as they call it. But so I'm paying attention to this bus and I realize it's red. The windows are blacked out. I can't see anything in the windows. It looks like a tour bus. And so it's coming up pretty fast. And I look at my youngest, who was like, probably, well, he would have been about 11. So I look at him, I'm like, do you see this bus coming up? And he says, yeah, that's really weird. So it pulls up, this thing is completely red. The windows down the side are red. They're spray painted red. The whole bus is red. It's a double decker. And on top, it's got this, top thing on it. Like, what on earth? And as it pulls up next to me in white writing, it says, y'all aren't going to believe me, but I'm telling you, I promise you on everything I am. It says, you have confessed your sins and are forgiven. And I mean, tears just go whoosh, down my face. And my son looks over at me and he goes, you needed to see that today, didn't you, Mom? And I said, yeah, I did. So it was crazy. And as it pulls up even farther, I look at the back of it. There's no license plate. And on the back, it says, Jesus saves.
Oh.
And I just was so in awe. I knew it was God. It couldn't be anything other than, So I pulled off to the side and, told my kids I needed to get milk and I didn't get milk. I just, I went inside, went to the bathroom and just looked at myself in the mirror in the bathroom and just, tears just came flowing down my face. And I knew right then I was going to be okay. And I knew that I could never denounce, God ever again. I mean, that was just, is never going to be an option. He clearly exists. And I think that things like that happen. So since then, I've always said that, God speaks to me in color, literally big red buses. So moving forward from that, I have always learned to pray the big prayers, pray the bold prayers that say, Lord, this is what I'm doing. And I need to know, like today, or you don't have to you don't put a timeline on it, but you say, Lord, I need to know, like, if I'm not supposed to do this, if this is not for me, I need you to show me in the biggest, boldest way so that I know that the only person speaking to me is you. Like, that's what that taught me. That process of, walking through that, denouncing God and then begging for him to come back and begging for him to let me know. And it would have been easy to probably stay straightforward and not pay attention. But I learned then you definitely look for ways that God speaks to you in life. And it'll be shocking sometimes that's the way that you see them. It can be so much as a pampered chef friend talking you into getting on a plane and you've never been on a plane before. That actually happened. And, I realized that then that there's things that you get into and you go through in life. And if you will just pay attention, he'll send you big red buses. Yeah. So that's my biggest, God moment ever.
Well, we have chills and crying. Something that you told me when you shared your first story, I hadn't heard the second one, so yeah, that was new for me too. But something that is crazy is that Alecia hadn't. How long had it been that you had flown anywhere since that? Like you?
Oh, I had flown to Canada when I was 18, and that was it. Um, After that, I didn't fly anywhere. But it wasn't just flying. It was I didn't leave home. So I just didn't leave. The fear all those years was that I leave home and something bad happens. Um, until I joined Pampered Chef. quite honestly, and got with all of y'all, the amazing, supportive people that I get to surround myself with to this day. And through their encouragement and peace and different things, angels among us, I made my first trip to Chicago. I believe was my first one for a Pampered Chef retreat, and I flew, and I was quite nervous. Like I always say, that was my pioneer trip out, where nothing bad happened when I left. And it was amazing because a lot of people didn't understand the anxiety that I was going through. My very first conference, they didn't understand, why I was quiet, why I was distant, what I was going through in my head, the constant worry that something bad was going to happen at home. But some people did, and they were absolutely the most supportive, phenomenal people ever that I could have gone through stepping out. Now I'm excited. I can't wait to get plane tickets in my phone. Like, get it in my app and I'm all about it. So I love it. Yeah.
I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
So at first, obviously after the first tragic story that you told us, you said that you heard a voice. Was it like, did you hear an actual voice, or do you think, was it in your head, or was it audible to you?
It was audible to me. Yeah. It was you talking about in the car when
Right.
I said yeah, in the car it was very audible to me at that time. Now, like I say, it felt like I was in a middle of a conscious subconscious
Right.
state, not sleep. So it's very different than what, like, if I said, if I lay down and was asleep right now and somebody came in and started talking to me and I was half asleep, it's not the same.
Right.
Um, it was different, but it was definitely, that one was audible. Yeah.
And did you see anything also, or it was just, you just heard?
Yeah, I felt like I mean, it was Jesus. I felt like it was Jesus, Um, to me, it was very clear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a miracle. And then also, so you said that you were dealing with some pretty dark stuff as far as anxiety and depression stuff after, obviously. What, I know you lean on your faith, obviously, and kind of denounced your faith also. But what, was there anything else specifically that helped you kind of dig your way out of that hole that you were in?
Yeah, so the Lord always goes before us, right? And when at the moments that things were happening, I didn't catch what was happening. But looking back, I see everywhere He had prepared to take care of me, where He had used other people or situations to make sure that everything was taken care of. My church at the time, when he passed away, my church came through and put forth monetary donations. There was at Christmas time, I didn't. I had there was enough monetary donations. This happened in October, before Christmas. So, well, duh. Clearly, October is before Christmas, but so it was a tough, you're wondering how you're going to pay your house notes, how you're going to pay all these things. um and they had come through and had enough that put enough in that his funeral was paid for. My father was able to help with that, and we actually found out about a small um life insurance policy that he had where they actually paid. So because a lot of times that suicide life insurance policies won't pay on a suicide. So all of those were unbeknownst to me. I had no clue that they were even out there, and they came about. So the funeral was paid for. My kids had Christmas. I would have small things happen, like people would leave envelopes with gift certificates for the kids at the door. And I'm going with no name. I didn't even know who they were. So,
They were angels.
Yeah, angels, clearly. So there was probably three or four that came, that I would open up my door and or open up my mailbox and they were in there. So the people surrounding me in that time were extremely supportive. Another angel friend, I would call, she's definitely an angel. We don't talk as much anymore. 17, 18 years later, we both are just different places in our lives. But I'll make sure I tell her to listen to this. But she reached out to me a couple weeks after, if maybe 3 or 4 weeks after the passing. And she said, "Hey, I could tell by the way this was announced in the church bulletin what's happened. And I just want you to know I went through this a year ago and I'm here for you." And she became one of my absolute best friends for the next year. She I could tell her things and talk to her about these things, feelings I had and what I was going through, and she didn't think I was crazy. Different things like that. We discussed a lot of things like this, like different things where we felt that there was weird things happening or what felt like weird things happening at the time. But really they were things that God was taking care of for us. So she was an angel in my life that came out of the blue. I mean, the fact that she reached out even and said, so I've made sure over the years that I do the same. So I try and pass that along. I became a crisis counselor for the crisis text line for a couple years. Did my stuff there. Different things that way. But yeah, there's been a lot of different things along the way that I feel like, um, God was saying, I'm still here. I'm taking care of things. I'm before you. I'm setting it up. Just hold on. So absolutely.
I love how you said too that now looking back, you can see a lot more things than you were able to in that moment.
Yeah.
It's in our story and stuff. I look back and think, remember things that I had thought or had said or feelings that I had, and just how immature some of those thoughts and stuff was. But I think that's normal, and I think that's fine. I think it's awesome. Obviously, having a different perspective and being able to look back and being like, "Oh, God, you never left me." Like,
Yeah.
and I think that just will give you strength moving forward the rest of your life. Anytime you go through hard things, again, you will remember that He is always there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I always say I saw a cartoon once and it's had a picture of, uh, 2 feet, 2 feet walking, and then there was like drag marks behind it. And somebody says, some two people are talking and says, what is that? And he said, "Oh, that's Jesus. He had to drag me for a little while, but yeah, we're still together."
Yep.
And I'm like, that's me. He's had to drag me along, and I definitely have drag marks. There's not a second set of footprints, but, it's okay. He told me that's okay. So, and it's okay to be mad at God. I mean, I've learned that that's okay. That just means you're in relationship with God. If you can express anger at something that's happening here with him, and you can go back and forth with it. We just recently went through another thing, where I was like, "Lord, come on, what are we doing?" And express some anger. But I feel firmly that that's all right, because that you two, you're in love and you're together and you're married and you're gonna argue and you're gonna get mad at each other, but that just means you're in a relationship. And it's the same thing with God. We love God, He loves us, and we're gonna get mad, and it's okay to express that anger and go through it, because He's gonna see us right through it. So yeah.
Yep. That's a real relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
A question that I have for everyone that comes on the podcast: if someone is listening to your story and has gone through something similar or going through the exact same thing. Like, is there any advice that you have for them to get through?
Yeah. Focus on God. Keep your eyes on God, and at all times, let Him drag you. Fight it out with Him. Stay focused. Because even most recently, and I say that because we can lose focus very easily in what's going on the earth, and we can lose that and get into our worldly ways, and just, even if you do step off and you get into your worldly ways, come back. He will take us back 10,000 and 50 million times. So just turn around. Just say, okay, come back. Everybody's worthy. Everybody's worthy.
I love that.
Yeah. So at the end of the episodes, we always ask for our guests to share a truth. But if you don't mind, I would like to share one really quick, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's from your story. Your story made me think of this. But one of the most amazing things about God is that He knows us so well. He knows us individually, and He communicates with each of us differently. He gave you exactly what you needed in that moment, and it was almost instantaneous, right? And
Right.
that is such a miracle, and He knew exactly how to get to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, maybe it had to be a big, huge red bus, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody else, maybe it could have been a rainbow, or maybe it could have been just a little feeling in somebody's heart. He knows us so well that He knows what we need and when we need it, and He's going to do His part. We just have to do our part and be able to get out of ourselves every now and then and look around. And
Right.
so that's my truth, is that for you and for anybody that's listening, is that God knows you so well, and He
Mm-hmm.
loves you, and He will show you. He will show you that He loves you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think my truth, and it's just simple, is that He's real and He's good, and we just have to pay attention. We have to pay attention.
Gotta pay attention to those big red buses.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not
Well,
looking
and
passes by.
right, it can be so simple sometimes. It can be so simple. The other night I was just dancing with my son here in the living room, and I was like, this is a God moment. This is an awesome, thing. It can be so simple. We just have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Well, we have really enjoyed having you on, and we so appreciate you and love you and support you. And yeah, anything that you would like to end with, babe?
No, thank you for helping me feel God's love today.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, well, thank y'all. Thank y'all for letting me share.
Yeah, we
I love you, sis.
love you too. We'll talk soon.
Alrighty.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Angels Among Us. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow along for more stories of everyday miracles and reminders that angels are among us. If you have a story to share, please email or DM us with a brief summary. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, when we are waiting, God is working.